Hey, hi all. Welcome back to BRR Knowledge Center. And in this session, we'll see what is circuit breaker pattern in microservices. So we see there's a pattern called aggregate pattern or circuit breaker pattern or rate limiting. So this is some kind of characters or behaviors of microservices to put your microservices high availability or reduce the number of requests to your microservices or increase the performance to get rid of a failure request. So when it comes to circuit breaker pattern, so this architecture has become the new norm of style here for large scale applications because it has more advantages compared to traditional monolithic architecture. However, microservices also come with several challenges. One such challenging is preventing cascading failures. For example, a network or service failure in one microservice can quickly cascade into other services and cause a system-wide failure. So in this session, I'll just explain about two services. I'm going to take it here so that you will understand like what is happening it here. If you look at here, the circuit breaker pattern basically having three states. One is a closed state and open state and half open state. So that means very initially it was in closed state. So that means this is going to be implementing the circuit pattern in closed mode. That means it's pretty easy to implement this. So initial state of circuit breaker the proxy is the closed state. The circuit breaker allows microservices to communicate as usual and monitor the number of failures occurring within the defined time period. So, if the failure count exceeds the specified threshold value, the circuit breaker will move to the open state. If not, it will reset the failure count and timeout period. Okay, so I think so. You understand what I'm saying here. So, in a microservice architecture, services have to communicate with each other. Sometimes there can be a service failure, or it takes significant time to respond to requests due to network connectivity issues. So here in this example, user and article, when the user service needs to communicate with an article service, it creates a new thread and send a request to the article service. However, if there are any network issues or timeout failures from the article service, this user service will not get an instant response. Also, there is no way to inform the user service about the failure, so it will be wait for a response. As a result, the user service will send continuous requests to the article service until its resources are exhausted, resulting in the user service failure. So hence developer needed a method to prevent this cascading effect between microservices in case of network connectivity issues, timeouts, or service unavailability. So the circuit breaker pattern was introduced to address these issues in this context. This is a design pattern that falls under the sustainable design pattern category. It allows developers to prevent cascading failures in microservices architecture. So, so with this service a circuit breaker pattern, you can define the threshold value for the number of failures between two microservices. The proxy will count the number of failures between microservices and automatically stop the request sending for a specific time if the number of failures exceeds the threshold value. So if you look at this example, and this is what the initial stage in the closed state. So request is sending to circuit breaker and it send the request to article microservice and microservice will send response successfully to circuit breaker and circuit breaker will send them to user microservice. And coming to this another state called open. So here, if you look at here, microservice user and in between we have circuit breaker as a proxy. So it is basically sending a request here and from here it has to go to article microservice. But some situations, so this no kind of service request going via a circuit breaker moves to open state, it will now completely block the communication between microservices when there is an issue happens or response is not coming from the article microservice. So the article service will not receive any request and the user service will receive an error from the circuit breaker itself. Circuit breaker will remain in the open state until the timeout period ends, then it will move to off open state. And it comes to off open state, this would be like this. So here, the circuit breaker will count the number of failure requests, and then it will send the request to a article service with a limited number of requests. So in this off open state, the circuit breaker will allow a limited number of requests to reach article service. If those requests are successful, the circuit breaker will switch the state to closed and allow normal operations. If not, it will again block the request for the defined time or period. As you can see, the concept of circuit breaker pattern is pretty simple. Furthermore, there are specialized third-party libraries for almost every major language to simplify your work. If you come to the .NET, I think you use a Poly, and if you come to Python, we have a Py circuit breaker. And if you come to TypeScript, we have a circuit breaker JS file. So there are some advantages of circuit breaker pattern, like it helps prevent cascading failures, handle error gracefully, and provides better under experience, and reduces the application downtimes, and suitable for handling asynchronous communications. So state changes of circuit breaker can be used for error monitoring. So the summary of circuit breaker pattern is beneficial in modern microservices architecture. It allows developers to prevent cascading errors due to network issues and improve application availability. However, you should not use circuit breaker pattern for every microservice implementation. Before implementing, you need to evaluate the improvement it brings to your system, your team's technical knowledge, and the circuit breaker maintainability. If not, you won't be able to extract the full potential of this pattern. I hope you understand the concept of circuit breaker in microservices, and how it is transforming, one screen to different screens, as like first it was in open state, closed state, and then open state, and then off open state. So thanks for listening to this video, and please subscribe this channel for more videos. Thank you.